Hi everyone, welcome to Mindful Mondays. Mindful Mondays is a reoccurring series presented by the Wellness Resource Center. Every other week, we will be diving into different mindfulness practices and learning more about how to create a life that we don't want to escape from. This week's theme is all about journaling and discovering the joy and benefits that journaling may bring to our lives. Before we dive into our content, I'd like to present some information about our department and the work that we do here on campus. The Wellness Resource Center is the health promotion office here on campus. We focus on 4 different content areas: mental well-being promotion, sexual health education, internal personal violence prevention, and alcohol and other drug education. We are open 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. We are located in the Student Center, and students can pop in our office to talk with professional staff members or other student staff to really explore their different aspects of well-being. All of the work that we do focuses on the 8 dimensions of wellness, or the 8 dimensions of well-being. Those include physical well-being, social well-being, environmental well-being, financial well-being, spiritual well-being, emotional well-being, intellectual well-being, and a couple of others. You can see here on our slide our circles that indicate our dimensions of well-being. Those are really all of the things that make you, you. Whenever we think about well-being, we know that these circles really work together to create balance in our life. So let's talk about mindfulness. What is it and how do we practice it? When I think about mindfulness, I think about this quote that's here on the screen. It states, "Paying attention to the present moment on purpose without judgment." That's exactly what mindfulness is, right? It's all about being with ourselves in the moment, being able to identify our feelings, our emotions, the messages that our body is telling us, not feeling like we have to fix anything or we have to change anything. Just greeting our emotions without judgment and identifying that they're there. The earliest documented ideas around mindfulness have this connection to silence, to acceptance, to contemplation. We know that there have been connections both spiritually, religiously, and other secular contexts. The concepts around mindfulness in modern day have really been shifted by that historical context and by the changing ideas of stress reduction and well-being health that emerged in the 1970s. Mindfulness is all about this consistent practice that can offer us a positive physical, emotional, and mental health outcomes. I like to offer consistent because consistent is unique to each person. Consistent could mean daily for somebody. It could mean every hour for somebody. But consistent could also be weekly. It could be monthly. It can be seasonally, right? It's all about what works best for you and finding that unique routine. So how do we practice mindfulness? Typically, when we take a look at mindfulness, we can see this almost cycle or this process that helps us engage in that moment. Typically, in mindfulness practices, we identify an anchor for our attention. It could be a focus on the breath. It could be a focus on the body and how the body is moving. It could be a focus on counting something. It can be a focus on labeling things. Anything that helps us ground in that moment and pulls our attention. We find ourselves pulling our attention to that item, to that idea, to that breath or that action. Eventually, though, we find that our brain starts to wander. It happens. We're humans, and that's natural. As our brain starts to wander, the idea of mindfulness pulls us back a little bit. It recognizes and thanks our mind for wandering and taking that time away, but it is also gently nudging us to come back to that anchor or center our attention. We non-judgmentally invite our attention back. We know that our brains are going to wander because that's what they do, but we gently remind ourselves to come back to that moment, to that present moment, and continue that cycle of mindfulness. Sometimes we might find ourselves not wanting to come back to that anchor, and that's okay, right? That just means that practice or that session of mindfulness is released in that moment. That session has ended, and that's okay. Today's practice of mindfulness is about journaling and learning to explore our different identities through the practice of journaling. We've all been there. When a classmate, new friend, or future employer asks you that question, what do? Tell me about yourself. Unless you have this prepared elevator speech, this question can sometimes bring a lot of feelings and a lot of emotions. How do you summarize who you are, what you value, what you believe, into a short answer? Expressing who you are in a brief introduction can seem like a challenging task. The simple question of what do sometimes isn't all that simple, especially as you're constantly evolving and changing as a person. Every single person holds multiple identities at once. These are identities that maybe you feel deeply and are connected to, and others may be things that you don't connect with as much. That's okay. There may be identities that you perceive as very important to you and key to your overall well-being. But what identities do we wish to share with others and invite others into our lives? Journaling can sometimes provide us a tool to help us understand and process through and reflect on all of those different identities. It can allow us time to process through different aspects of those identities, which feel most important to us, which maybe we want to keep private, which are evolving and are changing in our lives. Journaling might help us with our self-awareness, learning more about ourselves, and developing ways to really help our authentic selves shine. If you've never journaled before or are feeling really overwhelmed by the thought of a blank page, that's okay, right? It just means that maybe the prompt that you chose or the idea that you chose or even the type of journaling you chose isn't resonating with you at that moment. Mindfulness practices serve us in that moment and help fuel us. And if it's not serving us, if it's not fueling us, that's okay. We can set that aside. Maybe trying something new, maybe inviting a new practice or a new idea into our routine can help us still acquire those feelings and the benefits, but just in a different way. In the next couple of minutes, I want to invite folks to take a couple of minutes to reflect on their own self-reflection. I encourage you, if you have a pen or paper, or even your phone, if you find that you enjoy journaling on your phone, I encourage you to start making a list of different journaling prompts. that can help spark ideas for your journaling practice. These could be prompts based on self-reflection. They could be prompts based on summarization or what you've done for the day, what you're proud of for the day. They could be prompts based on what you want to accomplish short term, or maybe it's a longer term goal or longer term journey for you. Some of my favorite journaling prompts are things such as, what's most important to me in life? Who am I around when I feel my best self? What core values are most important to me? And how do I see those reflected in my everyday life, in my everyday routine? How have I changed in the past year, month, decade? How am I growing into the person that I want to be? How would I describe myself to a stranger? What's most important to me to share? How do I spend my time? How does that make me feel? I encourage you to take a couple minutes and write down a couple of journaling prompts that might help you cultivate this practice. I hope that quick practice was restorative and invited in a new opportunity of growth. To close us out, I wanted to just offer a couple of resources and further support available to students. We have so many resources, both on and off campus, to assist students with their overall well-being. We have confidential resources where the conversations that you have in those spaces are private, protected, and stay confidential. Those include Tuttleman Counseling Services, Student Health Services, the Wellness Resource Center, the Crisis Text Line, and 988. Those last two are resources available to folks wherever you are at in the continental United States. We also have programs for peer support, where if maybe you want to talk with a peer about what you're going through. There is the RRC, the Resiliency Resource Center over at Tuttleman Counseling Services, as well as support groups. We also have the Together All app, as well as the WellTrack Boost app, to help students connect with their peers and to learn about more routines for their well-being. It's important for students to know that you're not alone in what you're experiencing or what you're going through. There are folks here on campus that would be more than happy to assist you in your journey and to provide other options. I want to thank everyone so much for making it this far in our video. I hope this practice was restorative, and I invite folks, if you have never attended one of our in-person or virtual sessions, I encourage folks to find us on social media at BeWellTU to engage more with all of the different offerings by the Wellness Resource Center. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Our email is wellness@temple.edu. Thank you.